Hello everyone, I'm Jenna, and today I would like to talk about neurodivergence as a reader and as a writer, and how that can shape opinions about what's been read. So I do a lot of book reviews, and of course all reviews are inherently subjective, inherently personal to your own specific tastes. And there is another layer that comes with that. And I'm somebody who has quite a lot of neurodiversity, multiple neurodiverse diagnoses, including autism and ADHD, that I've known about since I was a child. And I find now that more people are talking about neurodivergence, and especially more females getting diagnosed as being neurodivergent, and more studies coming out about the specificities of neurodivergence in females, that there are some common threads within all of us. One thing that I struggle with that I think is related to my autism, and I try not to bring everything back to being an autistic person, but I do relate to everything I interact with as an autistic person, so it does come up a lot. I wonder if it is a preference because I have autism that I prefer to have books in the third person and past tense. Melanie walked to the door. I can visualize that. It's almost like watching a movie in my mind. There's a little bit of a visual lag from what I'm reading, but I know it already happened, so I can make it happen. I also can do first person past tense. I walked to the door, because that's how my friends, family, students talk to me about their experiences. So I have learned over the years to be able to visualize somebody talking about something that they have done. And the past tense, again, works really well because it's already happened. I'm not responsible for visualizing or creating or coming to any conclusions in my mind. So that's very easy. I find it easy to flow when a book is written in those tenses and those points of views. I struggle mightily with second person. I struggle, and especially if the tense is off. I hate when it's first person present tense. So I go to the door. It's like, no, I don't. I'm not doing that right now. And I think that's the autism being overly literal and reading, I walk to the street and I go to the store, and I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. And something about me just can't get into that, can't get immersed in that character's perspective. I can't see what they're seeing because they're saying I'm seeing it and I'm not seeing it. So I wonder if that is an autism thing, that it's a little bit too literal, but those tenses and points of view make a huge difference to my ability to immerse myself in the story and to develop a flow or a rhythm in my reading, regardless of the pace of the writing. Something else that I wonder if some part of my neurodiversity contributes to this is I struggle with large casts of characters. I cannot keep track of who's who, how they're related. I have a pretty good memory, but I can't, it's just too much. It gets overwhelming. I get as overwhelmed with a bunch of people in my literary life as I get in my actual life. It's just too much to try to keep track of. And so I will often DNF books that have large casts of characters, even if there is a list of characters and how they're related, it just throws me off to have to keep referring back to that or being like, who's this dude? Like, have we seen him before? What the hell is his problem? Why is he here all of a sudden? We have too many people. Like, who's this? So I recognize that as a quirk. I wonder if it is a neurodivergent quirk that I just get too overwhelmed with too many people and personalities in one place. Something else that happens for me is I require a lot of world building and description of the setting. I cannot visualize on my own. I have a pretty good idea if something is happening in a doctor's office. Yeah, you know, one looks pretty similar to another. But if it is really the core of the story is happening in a specific place and it's not well described, I just can't get into the story, especially if later I find there's a partial description like, well, the bedroom was down the hall from the office, and I'm like, well, shit, I had the bedroom upstairs and the office downstairs, and now I've got to revisualize. So I really need a lot of guidance in terms of the setting, world building, where I am in space. But I prefer not to have very much description of characters because I don't really care about people that much. And it actually is the same thing that I get a little bit irritated if we're not told at the outset what the character looks like. And, you know, we're 50, 100 pages in, and then someone's like, and so I pulled up my long black hair, and I'm like, well, I thought she had short red hair, and now I'm finding, why didn't you just say that so I could visualize it first? Because a lot of the characters aren't on the covers of cozies, so you're kind of flying blind, and I really prefer that. But I don't prefer to build my own world in my mind. I care about places a lot more than I care about people. So I feel like if you're going to describe a character as a writer, do it as you introduce them. Don't wait until later. And I just feel like it is a jolt to find out that you were wrong about how this character looked in your mind versus the author's mind. As a neurodivergent person who writes, I avoid dialogue like the plague because it's really hard for me to imagine what the other person is going to say because I'm not that person. I can make it so that I'm immersed in the character who's telling the story, even though I'm not that person, but I can only pretend to be one other person other than myself. So dialogue is something that I've always struggled with. And I also get tripped up by seeing a lot of dialogue written. Big, long conversations of dialogue are very off-putting to me, especially trying to figure out their tones or reactions, facial expressions, if it's not listed. It just, a lot of back and forth is, it doesn't give me anxiety, but I feel a lot, it feels like it's building tension, building tension, building tension, and then we never quite release the tension. So I dance around a lot of dialogue. If I see big strings of dialogue, I'm just like, oh boy, okay, here we go. And I do the best I can. But as a writer, I will just within a paragraph say, and they discussed this, that, and the other. And that way I don't have to imagine what Keisha would say or, you know, what Bob would say. I can just say, here's the conversation they had. You do the rest in your mind. So it's an odd combination of don't tell me what to do. I want to drive this, and I want to imagine what this setting looks like, what this character looks like, versus I cannot get into this story because I don't have enough damn information. I don't know what this setting looks like. I don't know what this character looks like. So that's quite the battle for me, and a hard balance to strike. And then if we add on top of it a tense or a point of view, that's harder for me to work with, then I have to DNF the book. I just can't, I just can't fight it that much. I read to relax. I don't want to feel out of sorts when I'm reading a novel. So I'm curious, is this just a Jenna thing? Has nothing to do with neurodivergence? Is this just a personal preference? You tell me, are you neurodivergent? Do you have the same kind of aversions to specific tenses, points of view, descriptions, lack thereof, dialogue? As a writer, are you somebody who wants to let the reader create their own world? Or as a writer, are you wanting the reader to imagine something specific so that the story can happen in a specific way? You tell me in the comments below. Let's talk it out.